It wasn't just a story of jewels, it was the unraveling of a royal legacy, a legacy that had always been about tradition, honor, and the future. And suddenly, everything that was meant for Princess Charlotte, the young and future queen, was slipping through the cracks, quietly taken by the very hands that should have protected it. I mean, if you had told me this would happen, I wouldn't have believed it. For years, those royal jewels, gems that had been passed down through generations, were intended for Charlotte, a young girl who had been born not just as the daughter of Prince William and Kate, but as the granddaughter of Princess Diana, and the great-granddaughter of Queen Elizabeth too, a child destined to carry a piece of history in her hands, her crown, and around her neck. Kate Middleton, who had always been a protector of her children's future, had envisioned these heirlooms, Diana's sapphire engagement ring, the pearls worn by the Queen, and those exquisite tiaras helping Charlotte grow into her role. Each of these pieces wasn't just jewelry. They were symbols of what came before, of the strength, the sacrifice, the love, and the unbreakable bonds that tied her to generations of powerful women. But the moment King Charles III took the throne, everything changed. Queen Camilla, in her new role, began to shift her focus, not just on her duties but on something far more subtle and far more significant. She started making decisions, behind the palace walls, that would change the very fabric of the royal family. And when it came to Charlotte's jewels, well, things took a turn that no one saw coming. In 2025, whispers began to spread. Pieces of royal jewelry that had been promised to Charlotte for years, passed down through the generations, were now being given away, not to those with royal blood, but to Camilla's own family, to her granddaughter Lola Parker, of all people. Lola, who had no title, no role, and certainly no claim to the throne, was suddenly wearing pieces of royal history. Jewelry that should have belonged to Charlotte, pieces that had been meticulously planned for her future. You could almost feel the air shift inside the palace. It wasn't just about jewels. It was about what those jewels represented. The history, the connection, the story. Kate, who had always been so careful, watching every detail, began to notice, and she couldn't just sit back and let it slip away. This wasn't some simple oversight. It was a deliberate, calculated move that could rewrite history. But why? Why would Camilla do this? Was it just about the jewels, or was it something deeper, something about power, control, and rewriting a royal narrative? Each item that had once belonged to Diana, whether it was the Spencer tiara, the Queen Mary's lover's knot tiara, or the emerald necklace that Diana had worn during a state visit, had been intended for Charlotte. These were more than just items of beauty. They were part of Charlotte's legacy. They were supposed to connect her to her grandmother, to Diana, who had been a symbol of grace, compassion, and strength. But now they were slipping further away from her reach, piece by piece. This wasn't about gold, diamonds, or emeralds. It was about a mother's promise to keep her child connected to her past, to give her a future rich with meaning. And yet, as those jewels changed hands, Kate began to see what was truly being taken, not just precious stones, but the very threads of the royal story that had been woven for Charlotte. Each piece lost was another link broken. Diana's sapphire brooch, the ruby and diamond bracelet, the pearl earrings, all of them had once held stories of royal life. They were a part of the fabric that connected Charlotte to a long history of women who had carried those same pieces with pride. Now, as Camilla quietly distributed them, the links were fading. The legacy was slipping. And soon, Charlotte would be left with stories but no tangible connection to the women who had come before her. Kate saw what was happening, and she fought to hold on to the promise she had made to her daughter, to keep Diana's memory alive. Through these heirlooms, this wasn't just a battle for jewels. It was a fight to preserve the royal history and the family bonds that would shape Charlotte's future. As Camilla continued her subtle maneuvers, the silence in the palace grew louder. Not everyone spoke up, but everyone noticed. Behind closed doors, royal advisors grew concerned. How could this be happening? Why was history being rewritten this way? Was this really the end of an era for Camilla, or was this just the beginning of something far more dangerous? The truth was clear. This wasn't just about a woman taking jewels. It was about changing the course of history. And Charlotte, the young princess who was born with so much promise, was caught in the middle of a battle she couldn't yet understand. But one day she will. One day, she will realize just how much was at stake. And when she does, we will know whether Camilla's reign will continue, or if the loyalty to the royal legacy will stand the test of time. Kate Middleton stood there, a calm and composed figure, her gaze unwavering. It was clear to everyone in the room she wasn't there for a casual conversation. This was a moment that would reshape the royal family's future. The tension between her and Queen Camilla had been building for months. Their interactions, polite on the surface, hid a growing divide. Behind the smiles and formalities, a battle was quietly brewing, one that had little to do with public appearances and everything to do with the future of their family's legacy. And when the time came, Kate didn't hesitate. She had gathered everything: documents, emails, and reports, and she walked into that room knowing exactly what she needed to do. No drama, no raised voices, just facts. With a quiet determination, she began to speak, showing the carefully compiled evidence that painted a clear picture. Camilla had taken something precious from her daughter, something that had been promised to Charlotte. For years, family jewels tied to history, to the memory of Diana, to Charlotte's legacy. It wasn't about the jewels themselves. It was about what they represented. Camilla tried to explain, to deflect blame, to soften the blow with excuses. But Kate didn't let her. Her voice was steady, her message clear. This was not just about royal jewels. This was about respect for her family, for tradition, and for what the royal family had always stood for. By manipulating the jewels meant, for Charlotte, Camilla wasn't just overstepping boundaries. She was reshaping a future that wasn't hers to decide. Kate's words were quiet but firm. She didn't need to raise her voice to make her point. She didn't need to throw a fit or create a scene. She simply stood her ground, knowing that what she was doing wasn't just about winning some petty argument. It was about preserving the dignity of her family and the royal history that had been passed down for generations. As the days unfolded, Kate's quiet, determined actions began to make a ripple. Her careful persistence in digging deeper, her conversations with royal archivists, and her private meetings with staff began to bear fruit. Slowly but surely, the truth came to light. Records were examined, evidence was verified, and finally, the jewels that had been taken away from Charlotte were returned to their rightful place. The original inheritance plan was restored. Charlotte's future, once again, was secured. Kate had won not through grand gestures or public speeches, but through measured, thoughtful action. She didn't need the world to see her victory. She just needed to protect what mattered. She had done the right thing, and in doing so, she had reminded everyone what true leadership looks like. It's not about shouting the loudest. It's about standing firm for what's right. But the story didn't end there. Kate's quiet strength spoke volumes when, just 10 days later, she stepped out at a charity event wearing the emerald necklace that had once been at the center of this dispute. The same necklace that Camilla had reportedly wanted for herself. Now, it was a symbol of something much larger than just a piece of jewelry. It was a message, loud and clear. Kate would not be intimidated. She would not back down when it came to protecting her family. The media couldn't ignore it. Headlines exploded, with people calling Kate's actions a powerful stand for Charlotte's place in the royal family. The story spread quickly, the public rallying behind Kate. Justice for Charlotte trended across social media as fans of Diana and supporters of Kate spoke out, sharing their thoughts and memories. The tide was turning. Camilla, who had spent years carefully crafting her image, was now struggling. Her actions had been exposed, and the damage was done. Inside the palace, the atmosphere shifted. Camilla kept a lower profile, withdrawing from public appearances. Her smile, once so confident, seemed more forced now. Behind closed doors, she was said to be emotional, struggling with the fallout. She had spent years trying to earn her place within the royal family, but it seemed that no matter what she did, she would always be compared to Diana. The public had made their choice, and Camilla was losing their support. King Charles, caught between two strong women, found himself in a difficult position. His loyalty to his wife, Camilla, was being tested by the growing support for Kate. The palace, once a place of calm, had become filled with whispered conversations and tense silences. Every decision Charles made was now scrutinized, and the weight of it all bore down on him. Kate, however, remained composed. She continued to show up at public events, smiling and greeting people with warmth. But those who truly knew her saw the difference. She had stepped into her power in a way that few had ever expected. Her calm, her grace, her ability to fight for what she believed in. It wasn't just for Charlotte. It was for herself, for her family, and for the values she held dear. Her actions, though quiet, had sent a message to the world: respect cannot be taken. For granted.as, the royal family faced the aftermath of Kate's quiet revolution. The world was watching. The media coverage intensified. The public spoke out in support of Kate, cheering her on for standing up for her daughter, for defending the memory of Diana, and for protecting the royal traditions that had long been held dear. Camilla's public image crumbled under the weight of the backlash. She tried to keep a composed front, but behind the scenes, she was struggling. She was no longer the woman who had gradually earned respect. Now, she was the woman who had tried to take too much, and the world had taken notice. The tension in the palace reached new heights. King Charles, caught between two women, one his wife, the other his daughter-in-law, found himself in a precarious position. The choice he made could change everything. And all the while, Kate stood quietly, watching, knowing that in this battle for royal legacy, she had already won. Things were escalating fast. King Charles knew he had to act before the cracks in his family deepened further. He hoped that gentle conversations and calm reassurances would smooth over the tension. With great care, he reached out to both Camilla and Kate separately, choosing his words carefully, knowing that the situation was becoming more fragile by the day. One evening, in a quiet, private chamber, away from the public eye, he met with Camilla first. He reassured her of her place as queen, hoping to ease the unease that had settled in her heart. She sat stiffly, her face a mix of worry and pride as she listened. Then, Charles turned to Kate. He expressed his gratitude for how fiercely she had protected Princess Charlotte's future and her rightful place within the royal line. It was a moment of sincerity, and for a brief second, it seemed like peace might return, but no matter how many reassuring words were exchanged, the damage had already been done. The public could sense the shift in the royal family. The once unshakable unity was starting to crack. The headlines screamed of division. Stories of discord echoed through the palace halls, and the world watched closely. Kate, however, was more composed than ever. Her calm demeanor hid the strength that had come to define her. The world had always admired her kindness, her grace, but now she had revealed a different side, a side that was bold, fierce, and determined. She had proven that she wouldn't sit idly by when it came to protecting her children's future, especially when it came to their connection to Princess Diana's precious heirlooms. It all began with the jewels. Kate had discovered that Camilla had quietly started to shift control of Diana's personal collection of jewels, a collection that held deep emotional value for both William and Kate. These weren't just jewels. They were symbols of family, love, and history. Camilla's attempt to influence the fate of these items was seen by Kate as an overstep, one that could not go unnoticed or unchallenged. Kate acted swiftly, and with quiet determination, she put a stop to it. Her decision wasn't just about the jewels, it was about preserving the integrity of the royal story, about ensuring that Diana's legacy remained untarnished and intact. Kate's actions set off a ripple that would change the power dynamics within the royal household. It was no longer just a family disagreement. It became a pivotal moment in royal history. In the weeks that followed, palace officials confirmed that Diana's personal items would remain under the care of William and Kate. The decision was celebrated by many who valued tradition, and for Princess Charlotte, it meant that her connection to her grandmother would remain intact, protected for years to come. Kate's victory wasn't flashy or dramatic. It wasn't about seeking attention or public approval. It was calm, deliberate, and powerful. She didn't need to raise her voice to make her point. Her actions spoke louder than any words could. By standing firm, she had shown the world that she would not allow anyone to change the royal story without a reason, especially when it involved her children's future. Camilla, on the other hand, struggled to adjust. Though her smiles remained in public, behind closed doors, she was grappling with the reality of the situation. Her influence in the palace began to wane. She became more cautious, less involved in decisions that didn't directly concern her. It was clear that the balance of power was shifting, and Kate's quiet strength had earned her the respect of both the palace and the public. While Camilla was still trying to find her place, Kate had firmly established hers. She no longer stood just by William's side. She stood on her own, with strength, grace, and unwavering purpose. Her presence in the royal family was no longer just that of a supportive spouse. She had become a symbol of the monarchy's future. Grounded in authenticity, integrity, and a fierce commitment to her family, the public began to notice the difference. Kate, once seen as a figure of gentle charm, now carried herself with quiet authority. She didn't need to prove herself to anyone. She inspired respect and admiration through her actions, not her titles. As for Princess Charlotte, she continued to grow in the safety of her parents' love. Though still young, her place within the royal family was becoming clearer. Her connection to Diana, protected through her mother's careful steps, would ensure that she carried forward the legacy of love and duty. Charlotte was growing into her role, not just as a royal, but as a young girl discovering her place in the world. Now, what are your thoughts on Camilla's actions? Do you believe she overstepped, or was Kate's decision justified? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out the other videos on your screen.